Behold, my glorious supporter Liliana has asked, oh folks, yeah, you were sitting down for this one. Feet? Question mark? Liliana says, that's it, that's the parlay. So, let's get as far away from the ground as possible and talk about feet. I guess. No, I'm being silly. Feet are not so scary. But I think the elephant in the room is to talk about foot fetishes. That's what you're looking for. Come on, it's okay. We can admit it. Yeah, man. I've always thought about foot fetishes as one of those things that's in the category of like okay, so you've got your things that people are sexually and or some kind of mix of romantically, platonically, sexually interested in. You've got your, people being curvy or people being cute or people being assertive or however you perceive that in people. You've got general things. Those are some general things. You've got somewhat more specific things. Bunny girls. Lots of people think that's sexy, but there are people who don't. It is relatively widely recognized as being a thing that supposedly a lot of people like, but I'm sure plenty of people don't. The culture I grew up in suggests a certain like body type or appearance is sexy, and I don't like it usually. I have a person I've met in my life who put to words how they're attracted to people who look stereotypically girly. And the reason is that they view that appearance as being like a telegraph that the person will be stereotypically girly, because otherwise why would they buy into that aesthetic? And that's actually exactly why I don't like it, because I don't want that. And if you took that label from our society and that's you, I don't like people that would do that. So I know if you have chosen to look like that and you are not like really young, you must be aware that that's a choice, and I don't like that choice. So I have never liked a person who presented that way, and that's not a coincidence. Back to feet, because the question is about feet, and I left this feet thing here the entire time so far. Foot fetishes, I think, are interesting because they're in this category where it's like there are some things that are just an extension of people being attracted to people. Sometimes I think about, whether a thing I like is a thing that a lot of people might like if given the opportunity or freed from judgment about it, or if the thing I like is something specific to me. In other words, is this preference of mine because I lack things that get in the way of having this preference? Or is this preference of mine something that I gained because I have things that allow this preference or enable this preference? Does that make sense? Like some preferences that might be a lot of people would have this, and the reason they wouldn't is because there's something in the way, or it's a preference that very few people have, and the people that have it, it's only those people because those people have some additional thing that creates that preference. Foot fetishes, it's like, I don't know. There is like a sort of dominant submissive like power play BDSM related thing with foot fetishes that has been interpreted both ways by people who like that. I am, if in this context, unfortunately, not somebody who likes that, so I can't really say. I'm not sure I really get it. But yeah, I guess there is kind of this fetish of like things that aren't normally sexy being sexy. That's a thing. I've never really gotten that either personally, but I know that people think that. That's interesting. I don't have anything good to say about it though, which is not to be cocky, but unusual for me. My career is having something interesting to say about a thing. And to be honest with you, that was all the interesting things I had to say about feet as a fetish, which is, I know, something that has to be put in here. But you literally said just feet, and I can interpret it however I want. You know the way I approach this is to interpret it every way you could interpret it. So let's keep interpreting. Feet are weird. A thing about feet that has always kind of irked me is how they're an example of evolution not picking good things. Evolution picks things that aren't fatally bad. Feet are not very good. human feet are not good for moving quickly or efficiently. They're just not bad enough that alongside other human traits, you die because they're not good. That's the thing. If you wanted to run good or walk good, feet are not good for that. Feet aren't like particularly good at that. They're just not bad enough that it's a problem if you're also like a person with opposable thumbs and relatively intelligent compared to the animals that want to eat and kill you. You know, that's something I always think about feet. I view feet as being like the sort of glaring flaw with the human body. It's always ridiculous to think of the human body as intentional because feet, feet suck, you know? There's that religious argument people tend to use where it's like, God works in mysterious ways, and that is reductive and doesn't make sense. Because things can have reasons. Like, you can't just say, but they're like, just because you don't know every reason doesn't mean there isn't a reason. And that's true, but just because we don't know every reason doesn't mean they aren't bad in a way that we do know. Like, we know a reason they are bad. That doesn't go away magically just because there might be some extremely indirect way in which they're good. That they're still bad. It doesn't change that. So that's a whole thing. Feet versus religion. I guess that was a topic that just happened for some reason. What else about feet, man? Let's just look at the word feet. It's satisfying how there are two E's and like feet, you have 2 feet. Toes are part of feet. You know the thing where like a lot of people don't have 5 toes, they have 4 toes, and it's like broadly considered to be that we're moving in the direction of people having 4 toes because it's like actually slightly better for your balance if you have 4 toes or something. Maybe not your balance. There's some advantage to having 4 toes. That's weird. I think that's an emerging genetic thing. Weird, completely inconsequential reminder that we're still evolving. More feet things. Flat-footed. I'm flat-footed. You can't serve in the military if you're flat-footed. I don't care, but that's interesting to me. I think it's because of like pressing down on, or like things fitting right. I was gonna say pressing down on like the pedal for a vehicle or something, or like the equipment not being standard. There's a lot of things in the military related to, for practicality purposes, like if you're allergic to something that's gonna come up a meaningful amount of the time, like a broad food allergy like eggs or something, then that's obviously a practical problem for the military. There are things like that. If you have kind of bad acne, you can't be in the military. At least the last time I checked, this stuff was true, because the acne will probably get worse while you're deployed somewhere, and then it will get infected, and that is a liability. I just think that topic is interesting, and feet are barely related to that topic. What else about feet? Feet can have a lot of problems. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately in the past like year or so is how your feet experience a lot of pressure, you know? You stand on your feet. Okay. Your feet hold up all this stuff, you know? 150 pounds, right? If 150 pounds were on your hand, that would not feel good. And, you know, maybe I have a problem with my feet, but as I think about it, just standing around, it doesn't really feel good. Walking can be fine, you know. Something that's helped me a lot is spending a little bit of time every day just kind of inverting my legs. My girlfriend told me about this, and letting the blood pressure just kind of recede from my feet for a little, like a minute or whatever. It makes a surprisingly noticeable difference to me, which might mean I have a health problem related to my ankles or feet. But you should try it and see if it feels good, because it might be good for you. Rolling your ankles, that's often painful to me, which is that probably is an indication of a problem. Plantar warts are a big feet thing. A lot of people get plantar warts like in college. These are little interruptions on the pattern of the foot, on the bottom of the foot. They're not like a huge deal, but if they get big, they can kind of hurt a little. You can treat them with a product you can get at your local pharmacy, or you can get a dermatologist to freeze them off, which supposedly hurts. I remember my dad doing that when I was growing up. He was like on his way to work and he had a wart on his finger, and he just kind of froze it off with something. I don't know what. Maybe I made up that memory. I kind of doubt he had some kind of cryogen that let him freeze off a wart. That probably didn't happen. That's probably one of those childhood memories that like something like it happened, but then I just kind of made up that it was that thing because it had an emotional impact on me a little. Yeah, he definitely didn't somehow freeze off the wart on the spot. That's crazy. Either that or my dad is really hardcore. Feet things, I don't know. Is there more to say about feet? You can now see how I spent that much time on the foot fetish thing. The growing interest in feet. Why has there been growing interest in feet? You know, I think part of why is that it's like a private thing about people, but not, well, I mean, it is known to be a sexual thing about people by most people, but it isn't like explicitly a sexual thing. It's not seeing your genitals or boobies or something. Maybe that's why people are more interested in feet recently, or they're saying they're more interested in feet. It's always important to be careful of that thing about like perceived homosexuality. This happened. People are like, why are so many people gay? Like, they're not. They just know that they are, or are telling you that they are. They either didn't find out because our society encouraged them not to, or they knew but they weren't willing to say, and now they are willing to say. There's no reason to believe more people like are gay, whatever that means. That's an example of what might be happening with the foot fetish thing, but I don't know. I wonder. Again, this goes back to that thing about like the preference, like where does the preference come from? Is there something about feet that sort of relatively objectively appeals to most people, if nothing is in the way of it appealing to them? Or are feet something that appeals to people, like if something uniquely makes them appeal to people, and the thing that uniquely makes them appeal to people has increased in commonality or something in the past few years? But what is the thing? What makes it appeal to you? If you understand the feet thing, if you understand feet better than I do, post in the comments and like tweet me or something. Help. Send help. I don't understand. Liliana, I think you were, yeah, okay, let's go back. Liliana's exact parlay is, and I quote, "Evening. I am exhausted and out of contact lenses until my new ones come in the mail. So I'm going even lower effort, all caps, this time for the sake of my eyes. Parley." Then there's a big parlay graphic that another patron made. "You may interpret the following in any way you desire. Feet, question mark? That's it. That's the parlay." So, like, this was surprisingly difficult in a way. I think feet are weird. Feet are confusing. Feet are kind of, I do feel feet are sort of a slight, not anomaly in the human body, but you know what I mean? Like, they're a point of weakness. Like, they're kind of a bad part of the human body, I would argue. They often get a bad rap. They're really far away from you. Something that bothers me a lot from time to time is how, you know, like, we are just our bodies and minds, but like, you think of yourself as being where you're seeing from. I think those of us who can see think of like, where am I? It's like up here, I guess, you know, if that's what you mean. And then you look down and your feet are like, they're way down there, you know? It's weird. And there's some insecurity with feet too. Like, people's feet are ticklish because I think there's a loss of control thing there. I don't know. Feet are, it's weird. Like, they're, it's strange. Monkeys are probably a thing that should be in this parlay. Monkeys have feet that are like more useful than ours because they can kind of grab stuff more meaningfully. Kind of wish we had feet like that. Not sure. Well, I mean, I'm sure there is a good reason why that unevolved, but it seems like kind of a shame. Yeah. I don't know if I have a lot else to say about feet. What else is there to say about feet? Shoes. We can talk about shoes. Shoes. I've never really understood Crocs. You know, Crocs, they're like slippers, but people wear them in public. I just think like a foot in a sock in a Croc is not presentable. I'm sorry. I just think that's not very presentable. And by I'm sorry, I mean, I'm sorry you have to be aware that it's unpresentable. I'm not sorry that I'm telling you that your foot in a Croc and a sock is not very presentable. I think that's just kind of not that well put together. But feet and shoes and Crocs and socks are a relatively important aspect of fashion, especially, in my opinion, men's fashion, which is at least in the culture I grew up in, pretty limited. There, if you want to express yourself with clothing, which the stereotypical man in the society I grew up in doesn't want that, but if you do want that, and there are good reasons to want that, it can be useful to express yourself in a new way that is outwardly apparent. You don't have a lot of choices, and a surprising amount of those choices have to do with your feet. Not a ton, I guess, but like, if you can't put together layers as much because they're just not as readily available in the society you grew up in, which is the case for me, then feet become one of only a few choices that you have to clothe with something that makes a statement. Of course, my shoes are literally just black because I apparently have no idea what I'm talking about, to make an unstatement. But I mean, the statement I'm trying to make is that I think that looks more put together. I feel like that is more presentable, to not have a sneaker, to have something that doesn't look like a sneaker or a formal shoe or a whatever, that is just kind of neutral. I think that I have a relatively forward effect on people when I meet them. So I like my clothes to have relatively little effect on people when I meet them, because I would like control of that effect. I plan to use that effect myself. And so I don't want my clothes to like interfere with that or something. Now, this is sort of at odds with, I have a scar here at the moment, so I don't have an earring. But I did have my ear pierced for most of the time I've been streaming for a lot of my life. And you could argue that gives people an initial impression. I probably will get it pierced again once the scar heals. But yeah, I don't know. Feet maybe give people some impressions too. People like oddly fixate on people's ankles. You can do a lot of cold reading of a person by looking at how their feet are positioned, positioned in or out. You can learn about maybe their anxiety or lack thereof, their training in dance or lack thereof, their posture and other health problems or lack thereof, their awareness of the fact that you can see the hair on their leg or lack thereof. Different lengths of socks have some snobby, but to be fair, it does look better if your body hair isn't poking out from underneath your pant leg implications. Those were some opinions about feet. Sure, that's enough. We'll just... This is the end of the parlay. There you go. That's the parlay.